mic tap, you're good. Oh, you got a special microphone. All right. I think we're good. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 10:02 a.m. I'm going to ask you all to please rise while we do the invocation and pledge of allegiance by the clerk.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence, and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please be seated. And if you could, please silence your cell phones and electronic devices at this time so we can have a quiet meeting. And before we call for public input, I'm going to ask John, our new leader here, to go ahead and introduce. I know we have some new staff that have joined our MPO, so if you can go ahead and introduce them and tell us a little bit about them. That would be great.
Yes, thank you. So we just wanted to introduce two new staff. One is not technically a replacement for Mabel, because you won't replace Mabel, but she will be doing a lot of Mabel's duties. Her name is Paris Hatzilaris, and she is this lovely lady here. So, and then also we had a position for a planner. So we've hired Miss Tania Gorman, lovely lady here. So we look forward to working with them, developing them, and maybe being the future of our MPO.
Great. So thank you and welcome. And now at this time, this is a call for public input. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to address the MPO board this time? Do we have comment cards? We don't use comment cards here, do we? So they just, is there an order that you guys? I see 3 hands go up at once.
Oh, there's a sign.
There is a sign-in sheet. Okay, I know we have cards in the city, so I know. Oh, there you go. Well, thank you, and I think you're on there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Please, ladies first.
We're so simple.
I was going to say, can I call the roll for the record?
Oh, yeah, that would help too, wouldn't it? But, yeah, if you want to give. Yeah, I'll use this. Okay, sorry, got me a little out of sorts here. Okay, the roll call, please.
Okay. Councilman Jeff Starkey,
Here.
Mayor Dale Massad,
Here.
Councilman Lance Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Ron Oakley,
Here.
Commissioner Mike Moore, Commissioner Catherine Starkey,
Here.
Commissioner Mike Wells,
Here.
Commissioner Gavin Mariano,
Here.
Chairman Miguel Hernandez.
Here. And thank you. And wow, that's the microphone we got there. All righty. And sorry about that little confusion there. And now we will do public input. I do have a roster of names here, so I'm going to go in the order that I have them. The first is John Tewksbury. Tewksbury? No? This is a meeting sign-in, so these are not, so this is the wrong thing. Okay, so let's just go back to the hands. You guys are getting me all confused here. So, Ms. Miller, go ahead and start us off, so.
Because I have to come back up here again. All right, so Kelly Miller, 5020 McCaslin Drive, Newport Richey, 34652. Good morning, everybody. As a citizen, I just wanted to state that I'm going to come up and give a report for the CAC. But separate from that, I just wanted to say I am in favor of reprioritizing the regional trails list. I believe that the fast-growing area of SR 54 and Starkey Boulevard should be looked at and moved up quickly. And I think that flipping number 2 and number 6 on the priority trails list should be something that you consider today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience here that would like to address? Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Nocera. The address is 600 Cleveland Street, Clearwater, Florida. First, I want to thank you for, in such a timely way, creating a resolution showing support for new technologies. Pasco County is taking a leadership position. You'll be the first county, if this is approved, you'll be the first county in Florida to do something like this, and I think it's a great credit to all of you for taking this type of action. Since we made our presentation to you last month, there's been an announcement out of Israel that a town called Netanya is voted on and has approved now a SkyTran system. What's interesting about this system is it's only 600 yards, but it's going to go over a superhighway that keeps people from being able to walk to a train station from a large residential neighborhood area. And the idea of, the situation that's been often mentioned about Highway 19 and the fact that there's going to be a multimodal hub built there in the future, and the idea of maybe a system like this that could easily cross Highway 19 in that area might be something for us all to consider. And the last thing I'd like to say is that with this resolution, we would like to open some discussions with local developers with regard to what I'm going to throw out is called the Pasco Aerial Rapid Transit, or PART, and with the theme being take part. The idea of being able to get this developed in some fashion here in Pasco County. And again, thank you for your leadership. This is huge.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience like to address the board? Sir, you want to come down and give us your name and address, please, for the record?
Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Ron Wayne Howes. I reside at 11234 Leisure Lane, Port Richey. We have Johnson Road that is a cut-through road that one end is 19, the other end is to Zimmerman. We cannot use that road in any degree of safety. There's busted out streetlights. Half the road is lit. People use it for an illegal dumping ground. We really need to, if we have money to invest, we should invest in our infrastructure where it's going to do some good for families and communities, because the area is becoming unsafe. Furthermore, Zimmerman Road from Johnson to 52, there is no streetlights, there is no sidewalk, and there's several crosses lined upside the road there where people are forced to walk because there's people that don't maintain their property. They have to walk into the street to get around issues, trees, branches, and such, and it's a blind spot. There's no street lights, and people are losing their lives because there's not a sidewalk and it's not lit, and that's pretty near what I had to say. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Ron, if you, Madam Chair?
Commissioner
Ron,
Mariano.
if you would, get with Mr. Rosenthal right there at the end. I've actually brought it up at a previous commission meeting, to get Johnson Road done. I didn't mention the streetlights though, which is another good concept too, so we can take a look at both of those things and maybe
I appreciate
get us updated for the board meeting coming up on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Monday.
Thank you, Commissioner Mariano.
Monday, yeah, Monday. Monday.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the board at this time? Seeing none,
There's an email from Gunther, but should I show it now, or?
related to something on our list, or with
Yeah.
the trail, why don't we
Yeah.
talk about it? That's a public hearing,
Okay.
so my suggestion is that after we do those that have input here, we'll address it at that time, because we'll
Okay.
bring it back. All right, approval of the minutes. My understanding is they're not available this time, so we'll table that till the next time. And that brings us to the CAC, and I think Ms. Miller's here to give us a report.
Okay, good morning again, everyone. Do you need my
Morning.
address again? Okay, 5020 McCaslin Drive, Newport Richey, 34652. The CAC met on September 5th here in the basement staff development room. After a brief correction of the approval of our August 1st minutes, we received the update from your August 23rd MPO board meeting. We are very interested in hearing more about the new technologies emerging in transportation today, specifically what just came up in public comment. Our action items included the approval of the 2018 priority list of projects. There was a lengthy discussion about the regional trail projects. We heard from staff and CAC members about the funding sources, the municipality input, and all of the staff's creating that went into ranking the list. We ultimately voted in favor of keeping the list the same, with Mr. Jose Cardenas being very strongly opposed to not moving the overpass on SR 54 and Starkey Boulevard further up the list. We appointed Ms. Christy Zimmer to the T-BARTA CAC as the representative for the Pasco MPO CAC. So now both Christy and I will serve on that committee. I will continue to serve as Commissioner Starkey's T-BARTA rep, and she will serve for the MPO CAC. We went on to approve both the Emerging Transportation Technologies Resolution and the resolution for the Regional Feasibility Transit Study. Our status reports included the Long Range Master Plan update and the Transportation Development Plan update. On behalf of the CAC, I would like to share a suggestion that was brought up at our meeting. When talking about PCPT, we would like to see that Pasco become on the cutting edge of supporting its workers by offering them free bus transportation to and from work, a county employee pass, if you will. We are trying to show that transit is a way of the future. In addition, I hope that county staff will send a representative to the Florida Automated Vehicle Summit in November, and I encourage you all as well to take a look at this magnificent opportunity for us to be transported into the future. If there aren't any questions, I'd like to thank all of you for your hard work and dedication and the service to our county.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Are there questions for Ms. Kelly on her report?
Kelly, you're staying for the meeting?
I'll stay for the meeting if you need, yes?
I might have some questions.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely, I'll stay.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. Next one is our BPAC, and we have Dr. Randy Stovall, chairman of that committee, here to update us.
Yeah, Randy Stovall, 8235 Angela Court in Zephyr Hills. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We had interesting and fruitful BPAC on August 28th, and we looked at the priority list as well, and we did talk about the trail overpass question of whether we want to have the overpass built over 54 before 52, and we also looked at traffic data, and what we learned, and I think you received that data as well, what we learned is traffic is about twice as heavy on SR 54 right now as it is on 52. I think most of us knew that, but it's nice to have the data. And so our recommendation is to swap those two in the list. So we still want the 52 built, but we think the 54 is a higher priority for us. We also had talked about safety and other issues, and one of the things we would like for our planners to think about when they're either building new roads or doing major overhauls of old roads is that perhaps we could have a default for a multi-purpose trail, 10 or 12 feet on one side of the road rather than two small sidewalks, just because it's much safer. Particularly in high traffic areas, we could get bicyclists off the road and onto the trail, and they don't tend to ride sidewalks. We talked about the safety plan that Florida DOT is doing for pedestrians and bicycles in our county. And I think I reported a little bit at my meeting, at your meeting last time, but we did have MPO staff members, and Kelly and I, representing advisory committees, attended the meetings, and I think certainly we need to do something to improve safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, and hopefully we'll get something really useful from that study. So we're grateful to FDOT for doing that for us. We discussed somewhat the surplus property that belongs to Pasco Utilities that's in the area of Powerline and Christian Road in northeast Pasco County, and I know that Utilities had asked you to sell it. They don't need it anymore. The question that we talked about was, we had a consultant here a year or so ago that helped to plan a route to connect the Hardy Trail in Dade City to the Withlacoochee Trailhead up in Lacoochee. And one of the suggested routes was to go through that land. It's very beautiful, undeveloped land, and it would be great for some kind of a park or bicycle use. So if you can consider that when you're thinking about what you might do with that land. And then we talked about kind of an interesting fact. Nobody really knows all the different things that are happening with bicycle activities in our county. There are clubs that do events. There's nonprofits that give away bicycles. Law enforcement in the different cities in the county give away bicycles at Christmas, but there's no like one place where you can learn about that. And so we're beginning to have conversations about finding perhaps some place just so good things don't get left out and more people could participate who I think would like to. So more to come on that as we learn how we might be able to affect that. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stovall. Questions for Dr. Stovall? And thanks very much for bringing that last point up. I think that is, there are lots of activities, and as we promote that, it would be a good thing to highlight that. With that, we move on to our action items. First one here is the approval of our 2018 list of priorities. I'm going to first open it up to staff. If there's some, and Manny, if there's some additional comments, or I have Manny's name, but whoever wants to take it.
Emmanuel will present, but what we wanted to do was just share with you that there's an additional sheet in front of you, and what we tried to do as best as we could was capture the assortment of questions that you had related to information, data, to assist in the process of approving the
And that would be
list
the
of
one-pager, the information request.
Right.
So I think the way we're going to do this is we'll go ahead and let you update us, tell us where we're at, any information from there. It is a public hearing. We'll bring it over to those that are here today, out in the audience, if they have questions, and then bring it back to the board for additional comments and discussion. So with that, Manny and John.
Thank you. Good morning. So basically, the MPO adopts a priority list every year around this time to provide sort of guidance, DOT, in programming of projects in the next tentative work program. It's a 5-year work program that will begin fiscal year 2019-20 and end in 2023-24. There's a series of tables beginning on page 9 of your packet is the priority list. I was going to walk you through these pages and tables. Table 1 is on page 12, is basically a combined roadway capacity, intersection, and ITS projects. Tables 2 and 3, beginning on page 14, list our local and regional transit projects. Tables 4 and 5, beginning on page 17, list the local and regional sidewalk and trail projects. And then at the tail end, we have the TMA priorities that were approved by TMA board on May 2018. If you all want, I can walk through all the tables, but I think table 5 is the one that we have received the majority of our comments from both the board and your advisory committees. These are the regional trails. I have a map up there, and based on reports from CAC and DPAG, as you recall, there was a lot of discussion on flip-flopping number 2 and 6. The CAC had extensive discussion on that, but at the tail end, they decided to keep it as it is. But as Randy Stoll, the chair of the BPAC, noted, they went ahead and wanted to flip-flop number 2 and 6. So as we present to you, we have kept it the same as we did last month as a draft, and we're wanting to hear from the MPO board if they want to choose to flip-flop those 2. In the handout before you is all kinds of information that you asked for. Hopefully it'll help you decide on either going as it is or flip-flop number 2 and 6. I actually want to open it to the MPO board if they have any specific questions regarding any of the projects listed in all the tables.
Questions, Commissioner Mariano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Manny, on items number 13 and 14 of the...
Which table? You want to specifically let us know which table
for
we're on, or page?
we're on, yeah. That must be page 11.
Page 14, yeah.
Page, yeah. Well, it's
Page 14 or page 11?
page,
Well, it's the upper right corner. What page number is 14? I believe you're talking about County Line Road, Commissioner?
yeah, all right, I was looking at the map, but we can go to the table itself. All right, so let's go to the page 14 on the chart, on 13 and 14. Now, at Heritage Pines, you were there, staff was there, we did a presentation for a group of individuals that wanted to hear about what was going on with Hernando County and Pasco County on County Line Road. You guys took all that information, did a presentation, you came back to the Republican Club of Heritage Pines as well, did another presentation. From that point, I haven't heard any extra dialogue, and I've asked for extra dialogue between you guys and Hernando about their priorities. In talking to one of the commissioners from the other day, it looks like the one to the east is more prevalent in their plans because they got a development up there, but the other side is still, for Pasco, I think, even more prevalent as far as getting them done. What has been done about those conversations? Because I think if we're going to work with DOT and you got 2 counties pulling for a road, you know, at a minimum, it should be a priority project of ours, a little bit higher than that. But it's if we're not getting together, then it's hard to pull them both together. Have any discussions happened since those presentations done and conversations?
Quick answer is yes. We've discussed it with the county, with engineering administration, folks that develop the CIP. We also talked to DOT, and DOT's point of view was if you want to fund this project, you have to just move it up to the top tier so they can quickly fund it.
Mhm.
So it's up to the MPO board if you choose to move it up to anywhere higher than where it is now.
Like how high would it need to go?
Actually, when we submit this priority list, DOT will look at the funding streams they have and try to fund as many projects as they can. I can't guarantee how far down the list they will go, but typically maybe 2 or 3 of the top 2 or 3 may get funding. Because we're actually adding only a fifth year when they develop the next tentative work program. So they have 1 year to plug in all of these projects in.
All right, so let's say this, because the coordination's involved with both counties, if you guys would work in the next few months to get a plan together and bring something back to us about what you guys are coming up with, I won't look to move them up on the list for this year, but that dialogue does need to happen. They've been getting a lot of money. I think we need to try to partner with them to try to capitalize on what their success is as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Marano. Additional conversation here before I open up the public hearing. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight here on
No,
Commissioner Starkey?
Well, I want to talk about the trails.
Trails.
So, Manny, I got to use this, sorry. So I heard from numerous members of the MPO CAC meeting that no numbers, that this chart was not provided to them. Were they shown any numbers of traffic between 52 and 54?
No, we didn't.
And
we hadn't prepared it by that time.
right, and also there was discussion that they weren't sure if legally they could fund the Starkey Gap. There was question on if that money, the penny money, could fund that Starkey Gap, which we have resolved, right? So those were 2 of the problems why, while they talked for a long time and debated moving the 2, they just felt, from this is what I heard, and Kelly's here, that they didn't have enough information, and then they got to the end of the meeting and they went ahead and just left it as it is. So I think you can see from the numbers here that there's twice as much traffic on 54 as there is on 52. And when they constructed the 52, they made it so that it was a safe place for bikers to cross. Couple weeks, or last week, I was touring that area with Kevin Guthrie, who uses that intersection all the time to get on the trail from his house in, I guess it's Suncoast Lakes on the south side there. He said it's very easy to get across. He feels very safe, and I would say that's not the case at 54 and Starkey. And I was told today that there's a sign up on Dewey's property south of Longleaf on the other side of 54 that there is now a development coming there on the south side. So there is that also, that sense of urgency now. So the people who are going to be using this trail are most likely going to be families. They're going to be families coming up from Pinellas County and families in the West Pasco area moving around from one side to the other, and it makes Manny, I sent you some pictures. I want to remind you, when Gunther was here and showed you a picture, can you pull up your email and put it on there, what it looks like now? That road was never contemplated for a bike crossing, and I just think, we have a trail that's going to be marketed internationally, under construction now. We have the north side of the trail done, and the south side is under construction as we speak. So in 1 year, that trail is going to be done. And we won't even have a safe way to cross, even if we swap this till, let's see here, 2 would be when? If it were up to me, I would even put it ahead of the 54, but we're already in design on the 54 and the Sun Coast. But, but that's what it looks like. And you've got a major trail that the state is investing in, going from one side of the state to another with no safe way to get across. So, and now we have the added turn lanes that will be coming in from Dewey's project on the south, because he's going to have to carry Starkey across the road and connect it to Mitchell Boulevard. So that's going to be a big reliever of the 54 and Little Road intersection. So you'll have a lot more cars now going through this intersection. So it would be my recommendation, and hope that you'll support this for those trail users who will be in this area, that we will just swap these two.
So that would be two, moving 6 into the 2 position and 2 into the 6, right? According to this is table number 5.
Madam Chair? Further discussion? Yeah, when I look at what we told the voters we were going to do is one thing. I mean, we went through 10 years of putting projects together. When the economy dropped, we even added more projects on there. To pull that off for these reasons, I don't think is sufficient. It's the same international trail that's here. It's going to be marketed everywhere. You've got all the development going down there. If there's a way, and I know we have the mobility fees are in place, I don't mind if we even take a look at that, which we're going to be looking at in the near future, to actually designate money from mobility fees to go put more higher percentage toward trails and let the growth fund its way that way and move it up quicker. Maybe make it a pipeline project for development coming in, give them credits for doing it. I don't mind doing that, but I don't want to take away the penny money that's been designated for all the people up here. When you look at all the projects that are being done, there's so little being done in Northwest Pasco that I don't want to take another project away from up there. I mean, it really needs to be balanced out. It is a part of a planned project. It was told to the voters we're going to do it that way, so I don't support switching it.
So that's fine if you want to have your opinion, but I'm telling you, I'm hearing from the cycling community that there's not a safety issue for them right now at 52, but there will be a safety issue at the Coast to Coast Trail at 54. So the #1 trail in the region for years from the CCC is the Starkey Gap. And I have been talking about having a safe way to cross that road from the beginning. It's just, for some reason, never gotten onto a piece of paper. But when we told the voters that we were going to build trails, the #1 trail in the region was the Starkey Trail. And this is part of that. So is it not ranked?
That's correct.
It's the #1 trail in the Tampa Bay region. And so I feel very strongly we should, I think we're doing what the taxpayers wanted and getting them safely from one side of the trail to the other.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner,
you keep mentioning safety. I'm sure you read the article that was in the Times on Friday, correct? I am agreeing with you. We need an overpass at Starkey Boulevard and 54, as well as 54 in the expressway. But if you read the article, what we've been talking about with all the deaths on US 19, as far as safety first, I don't see how we have the overpass Marine Parkway behind either of those projects. More people are dying on that roadway on US 19 than anywhere else in the county. I'm not saying they're not needed, those places, but I just think
the reasons.
Let him finish. Go ahead, Councilman Starkey.
Go ahead.
I looked at that map and I saw an awful lot of deaths down in Holiday. And we need an overpass or some way safe on Holiday. But I don't think those aren't trail users going across. They're residents. And so.
What does that have to do with it, though?
I think we need a more comprehensive plan than just an overpass to help those people get across safely. I think we need to look at all the intersections. We need to have refuges in the middle. There's all kinds of things that other communities have done to get people who live in an area across from one side to another. But this is a heavy trail. And the other issue is the Marine Parkway overpass. And you know I'm trying to help build a trail network there, but we don't have it there yet. We have a wonderful trail because I drive it every day along Marine Parkway. It's beautiful. It goes from US 19 to Gulf Boulevard, but it doesn't connect to anything. Now, I live in Gulf Harbors, and there's a very nice trail from Florimar down to Gulf Trace Boulevard. and we're trying to get another trail up Trouble Creek. But at this moment, that isn't a connection to anything yet. But I agree with you, that overpass needs to happen. And frankly, I don't think that's the only one that we need. I think we need one down south, and need something up north. But the Starkey Trail has been the #1 in the Tampa Bay region for 10 or something years, so, right?
Yeah, for Pasco's portion of the,
Right.
yeah.
And I'm not disputing that that's the #1 trail in Pasco County by any means. My point is, in my opinion, we have to prioritize based on safety first. And we have more people dying in the US 19 corridor than any other place in the county due to pedestrian deaths. So I just don't think it would be the right thing to do, this is my opinion, to build an overpass anywhere else other than the Marine Parkway and US 19 overpass. I just think that needs to be done before any other overpass is built in the county, because that, in my opinion, and it's backed up by that article that was in the Times on Friday and data from FDOT, that's where the most people are dying. Whether you call it a trail or not, it's human beings crossing 19, just like it's human beings crossing a trail. I just think it would be prudent of us to build that, prudent is not even the proper word, it would be the most responsible thing for this board, in my opinion, to build the overpass at Marine Parkway with help from the county, MPO, and the city of Newport Richey before we build any other overpass in the county. That's where I stand.
So, Councilman Stark, you suggest, so that's #3 on this list, and I know we're talking about flipping 2 and 6, just so I have, and I know there's another conversation there. So are you suggesting that priority 3, which is Marine Parkway, the overpass, be moved? Just tell me so I don't put words in your mouth.
Absolutely, no, I'm suggesting it be
Why do you
moved.
suggest, and then so I understand where 2 and 6 with that flip is?
And once again, I'm not saying those overpasses are not needed. I just think we have to look at where people are dying first and foremost.
So, again, you're asking that Marine Parkway be,
Prioritized over those two other,
so that
3
become-
others.
I see. Additional discussion? Commissioner Stark?
Well, I think no one's denying that 19 is a dangerous road, but if you were to put a bike trail across 19, where are the most deaths occurring on 19?
All up and down 19, because people,
Why are we picking out Marine Parkway? I saw the highest concentration was down in Holiday. So why that specific area if that's for public safety?
why Marine, where else would you want to put it? You're talking about the trail from Gulf Harbors going to Gulf Trace. You just mentioned on Marine Parkway, we built the trail going into Grand Boulevard. The ultimate goal would be have that trail come all the way across, down to Gulf Harbors, across Marine Parkway, into Grand Boulevard, into downtown, which connects to other trails out to Starkey Park.
And listen, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, I'm not disputing that one, but I'm saying that we are about to connect a very important trail that has both sides built and has never been contemplated. That intersection was never contemplated for users to go from the north side of 54 to the south. And we have a mall coming up at 54 and Little. So that traffic is just going to increase, plus development across the side. So these are families that will be going back and forth, and the trails are going to be done. And so, you know, I don't want to wait for a whole bunch of people to get killed. Did you put the picture up, Manny?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
You know, I wish we could put it up tomorrow. I wish we had, I've been asking for this to be I've talked about this for years, and I wish we were already in the design phase of this so that we had matched when the trail was under construction. But I just think that statistically, we're going to have a big problem there, and it's facing us right now.
Are there, so let's, because I want to go back, are there any other, these are the two, is this the area that we're focused on and there are no other concerns? Because I'm going to let Commissioner Mariano speak. I do know there's some folks, and I know we have the CAC that did have some input on this, the flip-flop, and if there's any more about the underpass, I'd like to hear their input as well. Commissioner Mariano.
All right, and I do have concerns about sidewalks too, but we'll stick with the trails first.
Seems like this was the one that seems to.
Let me suggest this, that I would suggest that we would even move the Marine Parkway up above 52, because we have no known safety issues at the 52 flyover yet. There's a lot less traffic on the 52 and Suncoast than there is on 19.
Right, I agree, and that's what I mentioned previously, is that I think the overpass and Marine Parkway should be prioritized above all three of those. But I agree with you, based on the traffic count, it blew my mind when I saw the amount of traffic on 54 matching 19. That was eye-opening to me, I will admit. However, I'm going to stick with my stance on we have to prioritize the list based on safety.
All right, and with that,
I still wasn't through before I got interrupted twice.
yes, go ahead.
Thanks.
I know
Sorry.
you had sidewalks, go ahead.
Yeah, all right, so in looking at the trails, okay, you've got development come around the corner. We've got mobility fees that we're allowing for funding for transit, okay? And it can be put into trails just as well. We're going to be looking at that mobility fee study coming back to us, Mr. Biles? The mobility fee study is coming back to us when?
Well, we have a workshop scheduled for 2 weeks from now. with
Okay,
the
and
board.
in that workshop, could we not say we could actually increase the percentage of money that goes toward trails?
It's a constrained plan, so any additional money to trails means you're taking away from another project. So you would have to decide between projects.
Right, but we could make the decision, if we decide on certain projects, to go forward. This way here, for developers coming in, such as, whether it be Mitchell, Longleaf, Starkey, Estancia, whatever it may be, if they want to come in and make this trail happen, they can say, you know what, we're going to put part of our money, part of a pipeline project to go get this thing done and built. And we can do that through the private sector. What I'm saying is anywhere around there, whatever's in that area, to bring it forward. So whatever they want to say, if they want to see this thing connect, because even if it's 2 miles down the road, whatever it may be, they can direct their money to go that way and get credit for it. Is there any reason we can't do that?
I don't know, we'll have to look into it, research it.
I'm not through yet.
There's no one
I'm not
left
through
there.
yet, if you don't mind.
Mariano, and then we'll get Commissioners.
All right, so if there's a way to do it, and I know we've talked about doing that with the project was just up at Serengeti, about letting them get credits to build the trail connection going up there or connecting down to Hayes Road, where they could do a pipeline project.
I think, let Mr. Goldstein answer that.
To answer your question,
I didn't see you there,
Goldstein,
David. I would have called you, sorry.
Chief Assistant County Attorney, I figured it better if I just jumped
No,
in.
I didn't see you there, I'm sorry.
In the Serengeti case, we were giving them credit, there's a bicycle pedestrian portion of the mobility fee that's dedicated for bicycle pedestrian projects. In the case of Serengeti, we were giving them credit against that portion of the fee. I'm not saying that you legally can't give them credit against the roadway part of the fee or the transit part of the fee, but Mr. Biles is correct, then you're taking away money from roadway projects and transit projects. I'm not saying it's a legal prohibition. You could make a determination that a trail project indirectly benefits the road. In the case of this case, you might argue that it's providing a safety to 54 or safety to 19. But it is going to take away money that's already allocated to a road project or to a transit project if you do that.
Right, and it comes to priorities. So if we decide that we want to take and have that flexibility to have a higher percentage go to trails, and if the people that are developing, they say they want to go do it as well, what's the harm?
Well, to be clear, you wouldn't be allocating a higher percentage of trails because the amount that's allocated for trails is based on the cost of us building trails. All right, so, but you could take road money. There's no legal prohibition on a particular project for you taking road money and spending it on trails. It can be done. I don't want to say that you can't do that, but you're just taking away from road projects.
Right, and if you look at the 54 corridor, there's only so many more improvements you're going to do anyway. So if we're going to go have all these homes coming in for certain areas coming on, and we want to take that money and go instead of building a road where we know we need a trail overpass, and it's right next to a development, what's wrong with doing that?
Let me give you an example, and Commissioner Starkey raised it. Dewey's piece is probably going to have to build that road from Starkey to Mitchell. All right, they may want mobility fee credits for all or portions of that road. And so we need to reserve some credits for that road too. You can't have all your credit money going towards a trail project because then you may not get your road built. That's the dilemma. And that is an important road.
And if I could add to what he's saying, the reason that the trail is not going along Starkey south of 54 is because of the cost of that road. Was the cost of building that road from Starkey to Mitchell was more than the land was worth a few years ago. So, and I remember the number out there, $13 million. So I don't think that whoever it is that's buying that is going to not, the road is going to come first, because that's the way you got to get into that project. So then you look at, Starkey Ranch is already done with their mobility fees. Asturias, I'm sure, has already done all their deal. Trinity's done. there's nobody else to go into that area to help. So, that I know of, maybe David knows someone else.
I'll give one other point with the city. The city is willing to put up money this time to go with whatever it can get for the state. The state gave us $750,000 a couple of years back. If they put up $750,000, that kind of cuts the cost down to what actually would get in this plan. I'm comfortable, especially knowing the safety issue that is out there. If they wanted to move it up, one ahead of 52, I'm okay. If you wanted to take the Starkey Gap and move it just under 52, I'm okay with that too. But to do a complete flip-flop and move 52 back to number 6, I don't think it's the right move.
Well, I'm not, you know, we've told the taxpayers we were going to do all these trails, and the cycling community is telling you they think this is going to be the danger spot. So I'm in disagreement with you, but I am in agreement with you that we should be looking for other funding so we can get these all done sooner. And I hope that's in your legislative ask to ask for that money again. That, was it 750?
I think the projected cost, Ms. Bowles, do you know what the projected cost, I want to say was $3 million for the overpass at 19?
That sounds about right.
That's a number they throw out a lot for overpasses.
The city and the, last I heard was Ms. Mann's, the city and the county were working together to try to figure out a way, if we did get funding from the state, how everyone could kind of work on the project together.
And we're going to be asking for all kinds of places to get more money for all these overpasses. So, I mean, I think we all want to see these done even sooner than what's on this list. So any legislative ask we can do, or if the DOT has any safety money or any other money they can throw our way. I know that for years when I was working on these trails, the folks in Pinellas County and Hillsborough told me they were using our money in Pasco County enhancement funds to build their overpasses on their trails because we weren't asking for ours. So, you know, it's possible we could find this money in other places to help us build these sooner. I think it's really important. You know, you look at Hernando and they've got an overpass, and we have how many more people than they do? And you look at how many are in Hillsborough and Pinellas, and we don't have one. So,
Commissioner.
Commissioner Stark, if you don't mind, I'm going to make a motion. You may like it, you may not, but I think. Oh, okay. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Oakley wants to speak, and then I'd like to make a motion.
What's the overpass that you were talking about for the 750? That's what money you had at the time, but I thought you actually needed $1.5 million. It's more than that now?
The money was, I guess Senator Simpson got 750. From what Ms. Mann's told me, our city manager, we weren't expecting the money. We had not budgeted to match anything at the time. So the money came, the city had not budgeted anything, nor had the county. So then the money went right back up to Tallahassee.
Somebody had asked him for that money for that project. They just didn't ask for enough.
Right. I'd heard that as well.
So you know what that number is, so we'll ask again.
Mr. Biles, could you get with Ms. Mann's on that?
Yep, we can.
And then Mr. Oakley, no, please. Thank you so much.
Let me know that
let her
number, and
know as
I'll
well.
talk to Senator Simpson about that, so.
So you'd put it back on.
And he said he would be willing to look at that again.
No, you had mentioned that a few meetings back. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're going to finish with Commissioner, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to move Marine Parkway up to the number 2 spot, Starkey Gap up to number 3, and State Road 52 to number 4.
Second.
Do you want him to repeat that? So you have, go ahead, Commissioner Marano.
Marine Parkway to move up to number 2, Starkey Gap to number 3, State Road 52 to number 4.
Starkey Gap, is it Starkey Road?
The number 6 one.
Yes, it is. I just want to, if I could.
Yes, sir. Manny.
Then we're also discussing a project in Commissioner Oakley's district, which is number 4, with Lakuchi Trails Extension. That will, a consequence would be, that would be number 5, Commissioner Mariano. Or 6.
Okay, so I know we don't have the numbers that you all have, and it kind of goes back to, but that is, and I know Commissioner Starkey can relate to this, that is very, very important for the east side of Pasco that is trying, we missed out on the coast to coast, and now we're trying to do some connection and have that whole connectivity. So by putting that way down to the bottom of the list, And I know, not that I want to speak for Zephyr Hills, but I know in East Pasco, we're working together as a unit, and that really puts a wrench in our plans for those bicyclists in that area. I know there's been a big project that they've already been of some concern on some
We
of
need
those
to make
roads.
sure we don't move too many projects down. I mean, all these projects are important. They aren't all be number one if you get right down to it. So we really, when you get right down to it, we need to look for other
More
funding
monies.
manners to move these projects forward. Because
And this
there's a
always
lot of them are
happens.
very important, even though if they're, 15th down the line, they're on there because they are important. So
Yeah, so I'm gonna, I don't like it, I'm sure, I don't like the fact that all of a sudden that project's going to, and I would think.
keep doing
be
that, the
bad.
project never gets finished and never goes anywhere.
Commissioner Starkey?
Since there was no second, I would like to make a motion to swap 2 for 6.
Oh, I didn't hear a second. Oh, I did, did you, I'm sorry, I did not hear that either.
Well-
So, all right, so, so is there there is, I guess, a motion, I'm so sorry, I did not hear the second. There was a motion, a second to change the priority here, and can you restate it again, Commissioner Merrill? We have,
You'd be changing number 2 to Marine Parkway, Starkey Gap to number 3, State Road 52 to number 4, which would move with Lacucci State Trail Extension down to number 5, and Orange Belt Trail down to number 6.
we
Madam Chair,
have
could
a,
I ask a question?
And then,
we have a motion, we second discussion, so, Councilman Land.
Based on the funding that we anticipate, how far will we get down the list? Because I know it takes, when you do this, we could be potentially looking 4 or 5 years before you get to even the third one. Is that right?
Unfortunately, Debbie is not here today, but I believe the county has number 1, 2, 4, and 5 program in the CIP.
Right, you can see.
So you say 1, 2, 4, and 5 were what?
Are funded in the capital improvement.
They are
program.
funded.
Are funded or are not funded?
Are funded.
Are funded, they are
Fully
funded.
construction, design and
See.
construction.
Route study, design.
That's kind of.
We can see it because it's all listed here. So it's showing that it has design, yeah, it's got the dates.
So anything that says construction has money allocated already.
Right, but there is like several years down the line. We put it in here because we want to maybe capture other fundings that are available. Maybe we'll do it earlier in time.
So what it
Madam
does
Chair?
is it exposes the 2 projects you're talking about as potentially being number 1 and 2. And I think our goal is to get our best 1 and 2 every year to get the most money. So if those other 4 have some funding coverage and they're still on the list, they're still eligible. But I think you want to pick your 1 and 2 that has nothing now. And it sounds like the 2 that you both want are the 2 that I think we should be considering for 1 and 2 and move forward and do our best to get, really, these are more involved than just any one entity. So the city, the county, we're all going to have to find money and make it a package to succeed on these 2.
Councilman Smith, did you have, is that finished of your conversation?
Thank you.
Commissioner Starkey, in your opinion, out of the 2 overpasses, both at the Expressway and then Starkey Boulevard, what, in your opinion, should be prioritized out of those 2? Because there is somewhat of a median at the overpass currently to cross half the road, but there's not at Starkey Boulevard. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
There's that, Gunther showed you that little
Right,
thing
that's
with the
Starkey
bike.
Boulevard. We know there's an issue there.
I haven't asked the cycling community that, so I don't want to give you my opinion. The opinion that I'm giving you of the importance of that one is from the cycling community and the trails community of how important that they feel that is for safety.
At
So
Starkey.
are
you referring to Starkey or both? I'm sorry.
the need to put Starkey and 54 over 52 and the Suncoast.
Okay.
I have not asked.
You have not asked, okay.
No, so I would not feel comfortable
Okay.
asking that community that.
And then, Commissioner Mariano, the only issue I think I have with your motion is based on I understand, I wasn't up here as a county commissioner, I've never been a county commissioner, but when you were speaking to developers and people moving to 52 and promising, overpasses and things like that for safety on the trails, as far as the priority goes, looking at the amount of traffic, 31,000 daily traffic compared to 53 and 56 at 54, don't you think 52 should still be behind the 2 overpasses at 54, just based on that number alone, or no?
Well, my motion was to actually take Marine Parkway to move it up to number 2. Starkey Gap was going to be number 3.
Okay, so we're keeping the Starkey,
I was moving the Starkey Gap up from number 6 to number 3.
okay, so those are,
So
okay,
I moved that up, and I put 52 right below it.
I'm sorry. I wrote that down wrong. So number 1 would still be Starkey Gap Trail.
And I want to say, I think, with that structure, what very well should happen and probably will happen this year, if we do it, and I've
Which one?
looked at our Marine Parkway, I would think if we really make it a priority with our legislative agenda as well as one of our items, you make it one of your priorities with the agenda items, you get the funding before, now that we can say, look, we got the money together, I think that can be funded next year.
And I think that's what's being suggested. I think Commissioner Oakley, and actually we've heard that from several, is that if we put that as a unit here on that legislative priority list, there is a better chance that there was an opportunity there, just there was, I'll call it miscommunication, there was lack of, the
Lack of
funding
planning.
sources, lack of planning, we'll call it what you will. So I think there is a better chance that that could be, and that may eliminate all this some of this discussion we're having here. I think what we need to do is unify behind that 1 and 2, is what I'm hearing staff say, though, that along with our legislative priorities, just making it a reality.
And if I could, the Starkey Gap could be put in for our legislative ask too,
Oh, I
to
think
get
we
that
should
funded
add-
as well.
I
So
think-
put those 2 in there, and they both have great merit to bring them forward, and they could get funded separately from what we have right here, which wouldn't slow down these side
We need to,
projects.
I think everybody's agree, I'm not hearing any dissension that this, the Marine Parkway needs to be up there. I know based on there's lots of conversations about deaths and safety, but I think there was an opportunity. We obviously didn't plan as well. We didn't do all of those things that we should have done, and so this is the second time around, then hopefully we can have a better effort in doing that to make that become a reality, knowing the importance of the safety issue that exists there and the all of the publicity and all of the attention that's been drawn to that in an effort to make that a safer place for those. Not to take away from all the other things, but just to, again, put these in priority. Yeah, Commissioner Starkey.
I do want to just take note that this list that we're looking at is not the sidewalk list. This is the trails list. This is the trails. So what we're talking about at Starkey is not to build a sidewalk. In 54, what we're talking about is connecting 2 trails that are heavily, heavily used. And so for right now, I think that takes higher precedence than the Marine Parkway one, because that's not a trail yet. But I would flip-flop those. I would put the Starkey Trail 2 and the Marine Parkway 3. And then I would support that.
Councilman Starkey.
Are you stating then, and Manny, your opinion as well, should the Marine Park overpass not be considered a trail, not even be on this list?
No, it should be on here. So, let me introduce the ranking right now. I think it will capture maybe all of your.
Please do. I think that would help, because we haven't even heard, and we know we have the CAC and BPAC members here, so it would be nice. Let's hear.
I would suggest that we do Suncoast and 54 at number 1, Marine Parkway at number 2, Starkey and 54 number 3, keep number 4 and 5 the same, and unfortunately 52 and Suncoast would be the new number 6.
All right, so that is different from my motion. I'd like to call the question.
So we do have a motion on the table.
How is that different?
No, it's the same. I believe it's.
No, he's taking.
No, he
he's taking-
switched. He
he's taking
switched them.
52, moved it down to 6.
He did. He moved, it was 4, and he moved it to 6.
My motion, I'll restate it again, is to keep number 1 as it is, the Suncoast Overpass. Number 2 for Marine Parkway. Number 3 for the Starkey Gap. Number 4 for State Road 52. Number 5 would be Withlacoochee State Trail Extension as it left behind, and then Orange Bell Trail after that.
So there is a motion and a second on the table. We've had discussion. I'm going to call the vote. I'll also just remind you that staff just re-ranked them in what they thought would be in the best interest, according to their knowledge.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm looking here, and design is already underway for the Withlacoochee State Trail Extension, and the right-of-way is pretty much in the works.
No, we don't have the design, but we are going to get ready to do the route study.
So, but all of those things that you said, Marine Parkway doesn't have any project information where all the others have some form of it in there. So there is a motion, there's a second, sir,
Sorry,
yes.
just under discussion real quick. Manny, just so I'm clear, so some of these projects, like the Withlacoochee State Trail Extension, they're all fully funded, so the Suncoast Parkway overpass, so even though we're putting them down the list, they're still funded, they're still going to be done in the same time, so it's not going to negatively affect these other projects.
But I mean-
We're just trying to re-rank the ones in priority that we do not have any funding, correct?
But Commissioner, if you do re-rank them, when Debbie does the CIP, she's gonna look at how you reprioritize, and she may shift money back and forth.
That's what Manny just did,
I'm not sure how that, what the consequence of that would be.
You mean you take the funding away from a project if it was already, funding was going toward that project?
Back and forth, I'm not involved in the development of the CIP, but I was once before, and I know that's how it works. I mean, they look at what you prioritize and fund projects accordingly. So it could, as a consequence, be pushed back, some of the projects. I know the county's adopting the CIP this month, so I don't know if there's enough time for her to shift projects back and forth.
Manny, your conversation, I mean, the option that you gave, now that Commissioner, I mean, kind of, it satisfies, you know, you push, right? You've got number 1 as Suncoast 54, 2 as the Marine Parkway, 3 was Starkey Boulevard and 54. I mean, you just flip-flopped and did what we, and essentially, I think it covered all those things we wanted. It doesn't satisfy the motion that's on the table now.
Number 4 and 5 are pushed back to 5 and 6 now.
And Madam Chair, my concern is, let's just say the trailhead at 301, we're talking about construction in 2020, 2021, they may go back to 2024.
And that's
That's
not
my
gonna-
issue, is it's going to hurt others.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the case, then I would be okay with it. But I think, it sounds like we got a workshop in 2 weeks. Do we really have to make this decision today? Can we bring it to the next MPO? I just like to see what other options are out there where we can work with the city of New Port Richey before we re-rank, my opinion, because I hate to see it hurt other trails, and these are all important.
So DOT has the deadline
thought we
for
had
us
to-
to submit a priority list by the end of this month.
That's what I,
But the MPO board can, during the year,
Change
change
it
the
around.
priority, and then they have to respond to that.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Mariano.
Manny, if we're going through this, can I add to the motion not to have Debbie change any of the funding that's in place so we don't kick the other projects back? When we go to Tallahassee, if we have projects that are higher on the list, they get a chance to get funded. If you can say, look, I want to go get number 6 funded, not going to happen. Number 4, probably not. Where are your priorities? We can say we already had these other things in place, but because of demands, whatever, that's why they're up to now we're up to number 2 and 3, and why we want to get them funded for extra funds. If you have it back on the list and move everything back, I don't want to change the funding that's in place and slow the other ones down. I want to get the money from Tallahassee. And we've already had success with Marine Parkway. I think with Commissioner Starkey up there pushing for trails, with the effect that the state's put all this money into trails, it warrants we can get both of those things probably funded from Tallahassee this year.
I'd be okay with that. I just don't want to see a negative.
I will add to my motion that we don't change the funding in place from our staff, and we keep that in place.
So we cannot postpone it, Commissioner Wells, so we have to make, I mean, we've talked about this, I know, so this month in this meeting, we have to take a
But
vote
he
on
just
this.
changed his motion to not affect any
Not
other
affect.
funding, which I'm fine
Funding that's in
with.
place.
Let me ask the East Side folks a question, though, because I was at the meeting where they were discussing that, 200 acres or whatever that is on the,
Dr. Stovall, can you,
and
would you mind
so,
coming up to the
and
mic?
so I don't know your area as well as I wish I did, but I know that piece of property, and I wonder if we were to look at getting that and putting a trailhead there, plus many more amenities, is that
That's part of
a
it.
better idea than what you have here? Or is that?
I think that piece of property is already part of the consideration. And
Wow.
the issue was, is it still going to be available for them to plan it? And so when the consultants gave the report, they said it would be the best kind of use for it if it's still available. And, you know, if it's not going to be available, they'll do something different. But it would be along a side of a road rather than through a nice 200-acre meandering, you know, forested area.
It's not going to run through the middle.
So
of it.
the county already owns that land, and this project is to build a trailhead?
No, the projects connect the north end of the Hardy Trail and, at Lock Street.
Which is going to be built now.
Up to the trailhead in Lakuchi.
Okay,
the
because it
southernmost
doesn't
current.
say that here. It says
that's
a
what it is.
trailhead at 301, so
But that's what it's for.
well, they should
So
put
the
that
Hardy-
on
the
here,
second
not just say it's a
phase-
trailhead.
Right, the second phase of the Hardy Trail is gone for bid now. It will be
Right.
constructed. Once that's finished, it'll end at Lock Streets from Lock to the existing with Lakuchi Trailhead. That is what that's being talked about here. So now we have the full connectivity.
So you
Commissioner
know, though, we don't have the funds in the budget for another park.
Yeah.
We have a 248-some acre park
Yeah,
in Villages
but
of
the
Pasadena
county still
Hills,
owns that.
a major park.
The county the utilities does not have to sell that right now, right?
Utilities needs that money for that land back in their budget, so they can move forward with other projects.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir. We've
And I
got to make
think,
a
I think
decision
if
here.
we do leave that open for the utilities to hang on for a little bit, if we do say we're going to go put a trail through there, I think that increases the property value anyway.
Well, we've already discussed the fact of along the roadside or something, but not cutting the property up so it won't be sold to some other project.
Councilman.
And what we're talking about, I just want to make sure that I'm straight on it. The project that is on our priority list is not the property you're talking about right now, correct?
I'm not sure, that's why I'm
Number 4 includes that.
In other words, a trail through that, but any type of other improvements is contemplated at a later date.
That's only a portion of it. That's
But,
only a piece
when they get into design, they will capture all of that.
that's only a piece of it. That's good.
Can you call the question again?
Just so I know, what the motion was amended to say was basically any funding that is in place on the projects as they sit now will remain there, which means, in essence, none of these projects' funding will be taken from it.
I'm not comfortable with that.
It doesn't make sense because we've changed the numbers, but not that we're saying we're
Well,
not touching the.
what makes sense, if you heard, staff will be the one to change the numbers, not anyone else. So we have control over that. All it's going to do is by changing this priority list, when we go to Tallahassee, we can go fight for these things. And when they ask, where is it in your priority list? You can say it's number 2 and number 3. We want to get the funding. We already got number 1 taken care of. It puts you in a much better position. When you're in the bottom of that list, and believe me, I found this out 14 years ago the hard way. We went up for all the money. We went up to 52 to try to get money, to try to get 52 and 19 done. We got nothing because the question was, where is it in your priority list? Because it was so far down, even though it was important, it got kicked back. 2 years later, the next year we went back up, we had adjusted the priority list, we got funded for like $22 million.
And it really,
And it works.
It won't be a concern of theirs.
We're going to keep all the funding in place, we control it all.
Why
so
are you
another
funding
pro-
5 when you're asking us for 2? You
and
know
we-
what I'm
and-
saying?
But we can justify it. Look at the article that's in the press.
In
We
other
got-
words, it's something that came up.
We've got, we got national organizations for engineers that want to study US 19 for safety. You've got bike trails that, to me, the state just spent how many hundreds of millions of dollars on trails? You get 2 super arguments to get it funded.
All right, we're going to call the vote. We have a motion, we have a second.
Wait, so,
And restate that motion.
Yeah, I think we need to, I have so many numbers on
I'll
my list
restate the
here.
motion.
Restate the motion.
So for the list for trails, number 1 remains the same as the Suncoast Parkway overpass. Number 2 becomes Marine Parkway. Number 3 becomes Starkey Gap. Number 4 is State Road 52. Number 5 would be Withlacoochee State Trail Extension. Number 6 would be Orange Belt Trail. And with that motion in place, we don't change any of the fundings that we have in place for the projects that are already proceeding forward, so nothing gets hurt.
We have a motion, we have a second. I'm going to ask if there's further discussion, but I think we've had enough discussion this time. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I think it was unanimous. So what I have heard 45, almost an hour, minutes later, what I have heard is that this board needs to work very closely with staff and county as we put those legislative priorities together, and we need to have that voice heard, right? And to make sure that from the city side, especially with those projects that overlap and have city funding as well as county and other funding, just make sure we all have it together and understand the importance. Are we good for now? Well, you know what? This is a public hearing, and I did say this 45 minutes ago, so I do know we have members from BPAC and CAC. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this MPO board at this time on what, yes, sir? Probably should have done that before we took our vote. That's,
I should have said this when I was up here earlier. The other part of the 301 with the Coochie Trail issue is connecting the south end of the Hardy Trail in Dade City to the multipurpose trail that FDOT already built for us that connects Zephyr Hills to Dade City. So it really is a whole east side connection for us that allows somebody to ride from the south part of the county all the way to the north and then connect to the coast to coast. So it's a larger project, so.
thank you. And so that, before we move on, and just because we're talking about trails and bikes, and yes, there's been a considerable amount of money spent on the east side, and I know that we are doing, and Zephyr Hills is working very closely with us to really have our voices heard, whether that's with Commissioner Oakley, whether it's with our legislators, with FDOT, with all of our partners, and that's a big, important piece of this, is to, just like Hernando, our neighbors to the north are effective in doing that. We just need to get better and learn how to, to continue to do that as best we can. Did we do all we need to do on that item, sir?
Oh, but our poor orange belt is just dangling there.
Okay, Commissioner Starkey, I'm going to ask you
to.
We're going to move on to item B at this time. John. I'm sorry.
I want to talk about the sidewalk projects.
Oh, okay. So I guess we didn't take a vote officially then on the whole priority list. So yes, I asked you if we were done. So let's go ahead and go back to sidewalks.
And Madam Chair, I do have one question on the sidewalks.
sir.
I had asked Debbie Boldock, she's not here, but they have Leonard, I know when Commissioner Mallory was the commissioner, Leonard was trying to get a sidewalk. It's $200,000, $300,000 project. I don't know where, let's see, it's moved up to 15 from 21 the last few years. I had asked them to go take some new counts now that they have paved Henley, and more people are driving down Henley and then across Leonard to get to 41. And we also have 2 developments under construction on Henley, and the residents in that area, including some disabled vets, use Leonard to get out to 19, and there's no sidewalk, and they literally fall into the wetland when a car is driving by. So did anyone go look at any new, because I believe in that matrix that we're using, and I don't want to jump anything over that matrix. I'm just wondering if anyone went and looked at that matrix and has anything changed?
We use the criteria, as you said, that we have.
But was it re-looked at after Henley was paved?
Maybe engineering is going to take a look at that.
Yeah, I need you to go do that, because I know the traffic counts have changed dramatically since they paved Henley, and those 2 big developments. Well, one's small, but the Morsani property is now, that big piece is under development, and they use Leonard to get out to 41.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about sidewalk projects, and then what we do need to do is take a vote then on the full priority list to move forward. So sidewalks, I think, is the other issue. So are we on page 18? Commissioner Mariano, tell us what page we are, so I'll make sure.
Page 18, correct.
Okay, so what is your question, comment,
All right,
discussion?
then go to, we've got funding in place for, tell me about this TA application, number 1. It's actually page 17, number 1. It says Old County Road 54 sidewalk, Little Road to 54. TA application submitted. What does that mean?
Well, that means in order for DOT to fund these projects, there is an application process that you need to fill out and provide some supporting documents they would need in order for them to proceed to fund the project. So we've submitted the application that they need.
Okay, so tell me the situation with item number 5 now, the River Gulf Road.
So that's Cody River. So the Cody River is the one that we talked about last time. You want to move from 5 to 1. We're going to have a presentation a little later in this agenda just to give you an update on the status of that project and how it's moving forward.
Should we have that presentation before I have this discussion?
You could, but I think what we wanted to share with you most in the presentation from the last meeting was that this project is just in the process of being negotiated between the cities for the funding. So there's nothing in place in terms of an actual project yet. So
I'm not going to accept that argument in a sense, if I could. The cities have both said they will participate.
Correct.
And it's a very, very small amount of money. Something I think so important, we would say we want to get done, even if we didn't get the cooperation, which we know we already have.
You already have it.
So that detail of like getting that into local, it shouldn't affect what we're doing right here. So go ahead.
Just a timing issue.
All right, so if we make it number one, how quick can we get it moved on?
The only issue is, you can do whatever you want. The issue is about a 6 to 8 month study, alignment study that's currently planned to undertake. So sometime later next year, we would have an idea of what the true cost is.
Okay, so we make it number one, we can start that process.
We're going to continue it regardless.
Well, why would that take 6 to 8 months, the study?
The alignment study, that's just the time that the consultant's giving us. I mean, we're going to do our best to expedite it, but generally, an alignment study could be anywhere from.
But you're good now with the funding from both municipalities on the feasibility study and everything, right? Okay.
Finalizing the locals and the consultants on board, ready to go.
Okay.
We're trying to push it as quickly as we can.
All right. Do I do any harm to the current number one if I make this number one over that number one?
What's number
And
one?
I do plan to make the motion where I don't want to affect the things that are already in play.
So which number one, so just so we're all clear? which-
Well, the number one that they have currently on
218.
page 17
Mhm.
is the,
If I can interject on the question about what is being funded, what we are referring to here is a feasibility study that's funded, not construction, just to make that clear.
okay, so all right, so I will make it, all right, so I'll make that to be a motion of, wait a minute, take number 5, the River Gulf / James Clark, from number 5, make it to number 1, let everything roll back 1 seat.
Second.
And I
Discussion, I think Commissioner Oakley.
Well, they're jumping up with a motion that quick. I got
Been a
number
year,
8
right?
on there, Boyette Road, and we get right next to a major district park, and we have no sidewalks there for the kids to get from the neighborhoods down to the park, and we were increasing growth in the same area with more developments coming in. And a gentleman just got killed there on a bicycle here this past week, so I hate to, are these funded anyway for construction? I think Manny was telling me a little earlier on Boyette Road, it was,
Boyette
What?
Road is program, it will be when the county adopts the CIP. It's in the new CIP
Okay.
program in the next 2 or 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Design and construction.
and the problem I have with that, that's the worst part of this job, is having enough patience to wait for some of these things that are going to be make it safer for our citizens to wait 2 or 3 years so somebody else doesn't get killed down that road, or some kids that are trying to get to that major park that we have right there. Somehow we need to expedite these things to get them done quicker. It just takes too long.
Madam Chair?
Sir.
You know, Commissioner, I agree with you 100%, and with the funding silos that DOT has, literally, you've heard me, in my district, I want to go put that technology for the timing of the lights up and down Little Road.
Right.
That money that's there, I mean, how many more projects we could have done and spending money on that? I mean, literally, even at Star Trail, I can go down during the day, I'm sitting there at a light doing nothing. How many times it happens on 19, you sit in a light with, why aren't they timed better? And I'm going to spend more money on timing before I perfect what I've got. So believe me, it's difficult to get these projects done. I want to just go back, and I did bring this at the MPO meeting, when I researched everything back from 2008, this project was really on the list at 2008 and hasn't been funded.
Yeah.
2008 was on, 9 and 10 it was like disappeared. Oh yeah, but I mean, well, here's what's happened with it though, because it didn't get top priority all the way through when it sits down at the bottom. And I can go back to Ranch Road and Zimmerman too for the same thing. But I don't want to cloud the issues with the others.
Everybody keeps them up and they keep dropping down.
Well,
when
that's why I
they
say,
should be.
so believe me, if we just kept to it, but prioritized to where they should be, but when you do the matrix changes and all the things change, guess what? The people that are already built out, they wait and they wait and they wait and never get done. And when you look at all the priority projects, all the money being spent, where it's being spent, the West Coast is the least funded. So I'm just going to go back over this. Commissioner Starkey, you weren't here, so I just, Councilman Starkey, you weren't here, so let me just review with you.
Do that quickly too, because
I'm
I
doing
know
very
we have
quickly.
lots to do. Thank you.
Well, but again, we've been in question about like the sequence. In 2008, this was on the project. In 2009 and 10, it disappeared. In 2011, it was number 18. Number 12, it was 17. In 2013, it was 17. It went to 14, it was, 2014, it was number 6. 2015, it was number 6. And then in 2016, it disappeared. And now it came back on for number 13. So it's been as high as number 6 already.
So I want to hear our staff explain that, because I had a conversation with Manny, and my understanding was that may not exactly be what's happened with that, so.
The projects have moved up and down for many different reasons. You hit on some of them. We introduced criteria several years back. We also, at times, we didn't have a local sponsor. That's why it got off the priority list. No one would support that in the beginning. So then, as you brought it up, we put it back on the priority list. And several years back, we had some funding sources that we could use towards the sidewalk projects. Those were safe routes to schools. They took that away from the MPO purview, and some of the projects got kicked out because the county took over those projects, and they are doing those today. If you look on your list, there are several candidate projects for safe routes to school, and they will get off this list once the county programs them.
All right, but my numbers, as far as what the charts were, where they were placed as being ranked as high as number 6, you're not disputing any of that? Okay.
We did provide you with...
Oh, yeah, and that's exactly what I got. So, and Commissioner Starkey, things do change.
I didn't finish.
Okay.
And I have been on record saying I do think that is going to be a great project. I don't think we have near enough information on that project yet. And I think also that this is not the only place that should look for funding for that project. I think building a boardwalk or whatever, we don't even know if it's going to be concrete or wood or whatever, it would also fall under tourism, because a tourism capital project. So I don't want to mess with our matrix, because then we're going to start fighting over every single sidewalk number, and we'll be here for hours. There's a reason why we went to the matrix. Like I said, Commissioner Mallory was trying to get that $200,000 Leonard project done. I'm still advocating for it, but I'm advocating for it as part of the matrix. And go look at the numbers and tell me if, with the system that we have said we're going to use, if it is worthy of moving up. I would ask them to do the study, and if the system that we're using for all our bike trails or sidewalks warrants that should move up, I am all there. But I'm not there for someone using political muscle to throw the matrix out the window, because then we're going to do that on every single one of these. We have to have some kind of order.
If I could interject for just a second, I really would like for Brian Beatty from DOT to chime in as well. Commissioner Mariano, we have to do a study to figure out what actually our project is. We're not going to be able to submit a TA application to DOT not knowing what the actual project is. We don't know the cost of it. We don't know where it's going to tie into. And that's why we want the study to tell us all of that. Once we know that, then we can relook at the priority list and fit it in. And I do suggest, if you don't mind, next year maybe we'll have a session with the board members into getting into criteria and showing you actually how we sit down and go through all these criteria to rank these projects. We don't just selectively pick them as they are.
I do think that is, I know we did try to set that up prior to having finalization of this, and we weren't able to pull and I do strongly recommend, even though we've been here, we need to do that so that everybody understands.
I guess that's the issue I'm having. I'm having a hard time grasping why it takes 6 to 8 months to come up with an estimate on what it's going to cost to build a wooden boardwalk wide enough for it's more than that. I know it could be land acquisition, DOT, but I'm just having a hard time grasping why it takes 6 to 8 months.
It took 3 years for a mile Starkey Gap Trail at grade.
But, you know, Commissioner Starkey did mention that, and I know this has come up at least 3 times about approaching TDC, the tourist development, and I know that we're meeting next week.
No, I agree,
So
100%.
I do, Commissioner Moore's, and I think that bringing that up, because I know we're looking at other opportunities. I know we did that with SunWest. So I think there's some opportunities there, just exploring financial, you know, options that we haven't in the past. So that may be another opportunity here that we haven't yet explored that might be able to help.
And
But
just,
we have funded the design, the study to look at it, right?
Yes.
yes, the
So
feasibility
it's
study.
on the, so, all right, so,
And just real quick, if I
Yeah.
may, just take a step back. I did hear back from Ms. Manson. Currently, with Marine Parkway overpass, the city has $600,000 budgeted currently towards, in our capital improvement program.
well, that's good news. Did Brian Beatty need to say anything? Did FDOT want to weigh in on this at all, sir?
Just to make the point that moving the River Road project that Commissioner Mariano suggested you go to number 1, nothing's going to happen in terms of funding, as Manny just indicated, until we have the feasibility. What type of, is it going to be a boardwalk? Is it going to be concrete, at grade? And I understand you're going to get a presentation on this later, and there's been a lot of changes in the last 10 years from the previous feasibility study in terms of the water, stormwater, and the rising tides and all that sort of thing. So to speak to Councilman Starkey's concern about the length of the study, that's actually pretty short to consider all the new standards and the new calculations that are necessary for that.
Okay, I'll try to be more patient. Thank you.
So it's my understanding too, when we adopt this, and hopefully which we can do shortly, if we adopt this priority list, it is I use the word fluid, as we get more information, as we do these workshops, we do have that opportunity to go back and adjust this.
Officially,
As
we do it once a year, but during the year,
We can
as
go ahead and move
things change. We've done it with overpass and I-75 because we wanted some money from the state, so we ranked it as number 1, and we got the funding for that.
Thank you. Okay, and so I know there's a motion, there's a second on the floor.
Let me have a little more discussion too, if I could. You know, something to consider, again, for over 12 years, this project was started, the concept hasn't gone forward. We've done it at different times, moved projects up for certain things. With the high death rate along US 19, this is definitely going to help it. Economic development, we got great relations now with the cities, you know, all around the county, but with Port Richey, New Port Richey connecting these 2 cities, if there's other funding mechanisms, great. I'm not saying we preclude ourselves from doing that, but I want this to be a top priority project from the list for everything that we go do. I don't want to see it step back. When there was some deaths on some students, like at Mitchell High School a few years ago, we put a sidewalk project, we put that project right in. Hicks Road, we had a death there. That sidewalk project is coming forward as well. So it's not uncommon for stuff to move. Other things that are on there are slow to move up. The matrix that's in place, I don't think you can go strictly by matrix. You've got to go look at where you're distributing the money that people are paying taxes on as well. And you've got a tremendous amount of retail that creates a tremendous amount of sales tax revenue up and down US 19. We're going to have the unit developments that are going on, but the commercial revenue that's generated, the population that's already there, should be strongly considered as well to put the investment to balance it back out in fairness of all the county. So to move this up to MUND, from what I've heard, it's not going to affect anybody's funding, anybody's timing. I just want it to be a top priority, so my motion stands to move it to number 1, leave everything else the way it is.
There's a motion and a second. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of moving item number 5, right? That's the River Gulf Road, up from item 5 to the top of list number 1, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. I think there was 3 nays. I heard Councilman.
Aye.
It was aye, so.
So what does that do to our number 1 transportation application submitted? What does that do to the county road?
We're not going to be able to submit an application on that until we know what the actual
Not
project
really,
is.
hold on.
No, what, our number 1 right now?
Doesn't affect,
It's Old County Road 54.
doesn't affect it, correct?
No, it doesn't affect that. Okay. But if you move that to number 1, DOT would want an application, as I and Brian explained, and we're not going to be able to fill it out.
Right.
They're not going
Right.
to fund it because they don't know what the project is.
It's a waste, it's a waste.
All right, so,
It's a year early.
all right, maybe I didn't understand what Brian was saying.
Right, what he was trying to say, there's a so we adopt this list, and with the information, the workshops, and as we gather more information, we have that opportunity a few months from now, or as we get more information, then to say, as a board, when we meet, we want to move it and do what you just suggested today, but we're not, what we just did in that vote really isn't not that it has no
Right, the
But they're going to submit something within 6 or 7 months to you. That's in the calendar year, it's moving the project forward.
Yes, sir.
So it's not slowing anything else down.
Well,
Moving your project up doesn't affect the rest of the list.
Okay, that was my point.
But I'm just suggesting that it doesn't.
It's not going to happen tomorrow.
Well, yeah, we
Right,
should
I
have to
get
wait
that.
on this feasibility study. They have to give us the
Not really.
application. You know, there's a
Okay.
process. that's
I'm good with that.
followed.
All right, so, you okay? I think it did pass 4-3. I think that's what I did here with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I just get for the record who said nay, please?
Commissioner Starkey, Councilman Smith, and myself, Mayor Hernandez.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think we lost a person here. Okay. All right, at this point in time, if there's no other changes on any of the tables in this priority list, my understanding is now, given those two changes and those two motions, and correct me if I'm wrong, we need to go ahead and then now accept a motion or call for a motion to approve with those two motions and those changes, the 218 list of priority projects.
To move number 5 to number 1, everything will shift down.
Under the sidewalks, correct.
I would
So-
move approval of the list as
Second.
amended.
Second.
Who did the second? There's a motion, there's a second, further discussion, I'm almost afraid to ask, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Okay. We're going to just keep proceeding, John, with this, and we'll see how this all goes in terms of our time, in case we need to table anything. Let's at least get through these action items. T-Barter CAC appointment.
Yeah, so the good news is we recently found out that we actually have a second member who can serve on TBARTA. Commissioner Starkey appointed Kelly Miller, who's already on the TBARTA CAC, but the CAC at their last meeting requested that Christy Zimmer be the second at-large member of the TBARTA CAC, so we just asked for your approval.
move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Thank you. John, I think you might as well just stay here, right? We have item number C, the resolution for the emerging transportation technology.
Yes, so we were with you last month to request, or we had presentations for you last month of two vendors, or not necessarily vendors, but technologies, so Skytran and Hyperloop. And what they formally asked from you was a resolution supporting their technologies. It wasn't asked for money, it wasn't asked for any kind of commitment. It was purely an endorsement of their technology so they can move forward and find appropriate funding and maybe even help us develop corridors where we could provide future transportation with these technologies. So it's been reviewed by legal. It's just a simple endorsement of their technologies. We ask for your approval to sign the resolution on their behalf.
We have a motion, we have a second. I think Commissioner Oakley, all in favor signify by saying, discussion?
I'm a little, I really like it, but what do I know about if this technology is even, I don't know if I'm comfortable enough. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. What's the capacity? I mean, there's a lot of questions I have. Capacity and cost. So what exactly does this thing do?
All this thing does is it kind of reinforces that we're in support of progressive technology. We're not endorsing the technology per se, we're endorsing them to go out and seek funding, they have a lot of more presentations, there's other areas that they want to explore. So yeah, really until the technology's tried and true, because they're having demonstrations with some of these in other countries.
Okay, so we're not saying we're looking for funding to put this in the county right now, we're just saying.
Support them as they
I want my
move
attorney to tell
forward.
me exactly what I'm voting on here.
Madam Chair. This resolution really has no legal effect whatsoever. Doesn't bind you to anything. It's just saying you're committing to explore it further. That's all it's saying.
Explore and support.
Just for the record, I think I heard this, no expenditures.
Yeah, in fact, you're not even committing that you'll endorse these technologies. All you're saying is that you're willing to look into it further, basically. That's all you're.
Support the exploration and research of it. So we did have a motion, we did have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The item D, the resolution for the regional transit. I know there's a lot of discussion on dedicated lanes. I think we added some language there, John.
Correct. So we were with you last month, and we had asked for your approval of this resolution. So all we had added was Commissioner Mariano's comments about, on page 31, item 1, about includes dedicated lanes or shoulders for transit operations. So we added that language in for him.
Move approval.
Have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item E, the mobility fee update, study time extension.
Correct. So as you were aware previously, the discussion about the mobility fee for the county is currently underway. Through our MPO GPC, we have hired the consultant, and so the consultant is pretty close to wrapping it up, and they just needed a couple of months extension to wrap the project up till the end of January. So formally, we have to come through the board. It is a county project, but formally, we have to come through this board for approval for that time extension.
So no additional money, it's just time.
Correct.
Move approval.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We did have an addition. I know we had a revised agenda, so there's an item F, and I guess you're going to continue on, John?
Yes.
The
So-
transportation disadvantage?
So I'm not going to belabor what happened, but normally what happens is there's 2 grants that come from TD Commission. One goes to PCPT, which is the provider. They get trip money to pay for actual trips. One comes to us, which is for the planning to oversee their efforts. In the past, we would get separate contracts, but what happened was the legislature, for whatever reason, didn't make their instruction clear. So all the money went to PCPT. So what we had to do in order to get our $30,000 was set up a separate MOU with PCPT to transfer the money to us. So that's all this is to make sure that we get our $30,000 in planning money from PCPT by having an MOU for the TD Commission.
Motion second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a PCPT update. Thank you, sir. Learning how to talk fast so we can.
Very quick, I just got one major update. We're actually live now on Google Transit. If you go on Google Transit, say I want to go from point A, point B, hit the thing, it'll tell you how to get there by the bus. The next one, we're working right now with getting the contracts in so I can send them up to legal for Bing Maps and also Yahoo Maps. So that's the biggest thing we've got going right now, and we're just moving on.
I just want to say I use that Google Transit in many parts of the world. It's a great tool.
Yeah.
And that's awesome that we're up and running on that.
And the next step, of course, is we're looking at how we can actually get real time. So you can go on Google and you see our little buses rolling down the road so that anybody can take anything, anywhere, look on there and say, oh, my bus is like 3 blocks away. So that's our next step, and that's going to take a little bit more to get those connections happening. Any questions for me?
Additional questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Now we go on to status reports, the Cody River Project status update, and let me see, what, Nectarios, Rapidas? Did I say that right? And I apologize if I did not.
Yes, Nectario. So as it was, Nectario's Pito's Planning and Development, Pasco County. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting, right now we're moving forward with the feasibility study, procuring all of the funding from the various sources. We've prepared an interoffice memorandum that's currently circulating. What we're looking at right now, where we're at right now is that we've drafted the interlocal agreements for review with the county attorneys. Those will be shared with the communities. The feasibility study cost share breaks down to about $10,659 per community at this point in time. And we'll be moving forward to the communities with the interlocal agreement within the next month or so in order to enter for the feasibility study.
Can you say those numbers again? How much is it costing per?
The total cost of the feasibility study at this time is $31,978, and so split evenly between the 3 jurisdictions would be about $10,659.
And who, we've already hired someone to do this, or do we have to go out to bid?
We have, I believe, AECom.
We have AECom through our GPC, similar to what we're doing with mobility fee.
And you might say what GPC is. So some
I'm
people
sorry,
don't
general planning consultant that allows us to use consultants as needed.
Councilman Starkey, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. The city of Newport did not hesitate when asked for the feasibility money because we understand what, like Commissioner Mariano said, this is not even in our city limits, but we understand the importance, the economic impact it's going to have on our city, the city of Port Richey, and the whole surrounding area. So we're just totally on board with it.
Additional questions, comments? on this update? Cool, thank you. Now we go into the long-range transportation update, planning update.
Yes,
and
so
let's
as
see.
part of our
Holly
long-range
Blaine.
transportation plan, which is a really long effort, which is being undertaken by Tyndale and Oliver, they're just going to kind of give you an update to date of what's been done and what we have to continue to do, but it's ultimately for an adoption in December of 2019. So
Okay,
with us
great.
is Wally Blaine from Tyndale
Yes.
Oliver.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Wally Blaine, Tyndale Oliver.
Good
Quickly,
morning.
I want to go through just an overview. We are kicking off, getting started on the long-range transportation plan, so a lot of work ahead of us, plenty of opportunities for input and comment and revisions to some of the stuff that I'll present to you today. Just want to talk to you about where we are with the goals. I know you guys talked about that earlier in the year. Went out and did some public involvement, got some feedback on those, show you some, a small change we're going to talk about on the goals. Look at what that means as far as how we're addressing those goals against the planning factors that you as the MPO are required to address from planning law. Talk to you a little bit about the growth projections. Some of you are involved through the TMA leadership group and know what's going on with the 3 scenarios that are being developed. Talk to you about what those are, what the public involvement process is on that. Talk to you a little bit about how those growth projections specifically for Pasco County are lining up for the 2045. Talk a little bit about the comparison to what was there for the 2040. And then wrap up really just with a quick schedule, let you know kind of what's ahead over the next 16 to 18 months or so as we get to adoption. So from the goals perspective, there are 6 goals that were in your current 2040 plan, and really the discussion at this point in time is about revising goal number 5 to add the word resilient. What I'll show you on the coming slides is resiliency is one of the 2 new factors that the MPO is required to address, making sure that we have a transportation system that is resilient for storm effects, but also for drainage and stormwater. So looking at those 6 goals, comparing them against the 10 planning factors that are out there, this chart is kind of on the left-hand, shows you those 10 planning factors and what they address as far as safety, security, making sure we have an efficient multimodal transportation system. And then again, the 2 at the bottom we're adding in this time is 1 to address resiliency and reliability of our transportation system, and the second is to make sure that we're addressing travel and tourism. So you've even discussed the tourism and economic benefits that transportation has as a whole. It's recognized at the federal level and how that's addressed. So this chart shows you how the first 3 goals address those 10 factors, and then the next chart shows you how goals 4, 5, and 6 also address those 10 planning factors. So just wanted to give you an idea that as we march through and work on these goals, those will translate to objectives, prioritization criteria, and how we ultimately will measure the effectiveness of the plan that will tie those back to meeting those criteria from the planning factors perspective. There's also, in addition, on your plan, you had several adopted policy statements that addressed how you wanted the transportation system to be designed and developed, and there's certainly opportunities for more input from the board if you want to revise these as we move forward. But one specifically about capping the number of lanes on our major non-interstate roadways at 6 lanes. We're also talking about making sure that we have an efficient multimodal transportation system. We're looking at all modes. The criteria about the policy about new roadways was making sure that we acknowledge that new roadways aren't just a resolution for capacity needs, but we need to address system connectivity and throughout our transportation system, so we don't have roadblocks along the way, that we've got ways to connect through and multiple options for that. Working through the county's right-of-way preservation ordinance, making sure there's coordination on the MPO planning activity with that as well. The transportation management operations and congestion management process, looking to make sure that we have non-capacity projects addressed as well, looking at significant signalized intersection problems, operational issues as well. And then finally, the coordination between the land use and the transportation planning. When you look at the growth projections, I'll start just with some quick slides about the history. So we've looked at how growth has progressed through the census through the census years over the past several decades. And so you can just see from these graphics, starting in the top left and working to the bottom right, where areas of growth have been concentrated in each decade, ultimately leading to the really dense development along the State Road 54 and the Gateway Crossings market area on the south part of the county. This graphic kind of takes off from that point from the 2010 and shows you what population was in 2010 in the green dots, and then the projection at 2040, how that allocation was done for the last transportation plan is in those black dots. And so you can continue to see the emphasis on the market areas of the US 19 and the State Road 54 area. You also see the Village of Pasadena Hills, Connected Cities area popping up around Zephyr Hills and Dade City as well. So that was the projection for there. At this point in time, we have not done this level of an allocation for 2045 because we're waiting on the regional scenarios process to be completed. So I wanted to kind of pull this in from 2040 just as some background data about the allocation. When we look at the actual estimates through 2045, one of the things that we've noted is that the state level estimates for growth projections in Pasco County are down from what they were for 2040. So we're looking at a number for population that's about 795,000, just shy of 800,000. Before, for your 2040 plan, it was a little bit higher, over 900,000. So we are working through that, and we'll do that allocation down to specific levels within the county as we move forward. One of the charts I just wanted to show you quickly is a review we did, a kind of sensitivity of the forecast out through 2045. So we looked at not only the state's estimate through the Bureau of Economic Business Research, which is in that red line, we also looked at a national data set, which is Woods and Pools, just to kind of get a comparison of that. That Woods and Pool data set has a number of about 805,000, a little north of the 795 that we're coming out of with Bieber. One of the things we did is we looked back in the history when the 2040 plan was developed. The Woods and Pool estimate today has some consistency to what it was back at the 2013 time period as well. So we feel comfortable that there's some maybe readjusting happening at a statewide level through the Bieber numbers to come out at the number of 795,000 for your population estimate. I've talked a little bit about the regional transportation and land use scenarios that are ongoing in coordination with Hillsborough and Pinellas, looking at some mixes of different ways and possibilities of that growth could occur and how that impacts or influences our transportation system. So there is a public survey that's going on. That survey is open through the end of September at the website itstampabay.org. So make sure there's still opportunities for input and feedback on that. This slide is a little dated. It was out just before we went through the committees. At this point in time, there's about 6,000 plus responses that have come in throughout the region as people are taking the survey and commenting on the factors and the criteria they like about growth, what they want to see addressed as part of the growth plans, but how they think each of those scenarios are addressing that. Ultimately, that comes back as feedback into the 3 MPO's process for developing the land use allocation through 2045. So getting to the adoption, like John said, by the end of December of 2019, there will be continued regional coordination. There's a vulnerability grant that was awarded by the Federal Highway Administration to the region. So there'll be coordination on what that looks like for how we're making sure that we have a reliable transportation system resilient from storm effects. We'll continue to work through these regional transportation solutions and identify that so we can finalize the growth hopefully by the end of this calendar year. Getting into next year, then we're looking at our transportation needs and identifying not just highway needs, but what we need from a transit, bicycle trail, pedestrian facilities as well, what those look like from our regional connections as well as locally within the county. Then we'll go into that prioritization. Again, those prioritization factors will be built off of those goals and the performance objectives of the plan, ultimately coming back to you by December of 2019 with a cost-feasible transportation plan. So with that, Madam Chair, if there's any questions.
Questions for Mr. Blaine on this report? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just to be continued, so thank you so much. Next one is the Transit Development Plan. I believe we have Mr. Ball, Bill Ball from Tyndall Oliver. Still morning. I was going to tell you afternoon, but it's still morning.
How can I say? I'm going to say good morning, and I'm going to make it brief, given where you are in your schedule. Bill Ball with Tyndall Oliver. Good to be here today to give you an overview of where we are with the Access Pasco Transit Development Plan, and I will refer to that as the TDP throughout the presentation. I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the key things that have come out of that plan, and I can answer any questions you have if you want more details. Now, why do we have the plan? Certainly, Pasco County has made the commitment to have transit be a big part of its approach to transportation here in the community. So that really supports, and one thing I will say is that PCPT has actually experienced increasing ridership in the last year, where many systems around the country are struggling with that right now. So that's a good sign for PCPT. Now, what is the plan itself? It's really a 10-year strategic plan to evaluate where you are today and the operating conditions that your buses are operating in. Do an assessment of those services and determine how we can best improve. What are the needs of the system? and what solutions can best respond to those needs over the next 10 years. It's also an opportunity to collaborate with the stakeholders here in the county, as well as with your neighbors, Hillsborough and Pinellas, as well as Hernando and those transit agencies. A lot going on in terms of the regional transit discussion. And of course, it's a requirement of the Florida Department of Transportation for PCPT to receive the state block grant for their transit operation. That plan has to be updated in a major way every 5 years, but PCPT also does an annual progress report to assess how they're doing in terms of implementing that plan. Public outreach was a big part of the planning process. In a few months' time, we did a nice job, I believe, of getting some good involvement through these techniques. This is the first phase where we use surveys, workshops, interviews, some good pictures here of some of that interaction with the public. Phase 2, we continued by asking them more specifically to respond to proposed improvements so they could help us prioritize what was most important. So we used another survey for that and some additional public workshops and some good meetings with the committee as well. Now, here's what we were able to achieve in those few months in terms of actual direct participation. About 1,400 specific individuals participated in these various mechanisms of public input. I like this table because it shows how we use that input to assess and prioritize the improvements. If you look down the left side, the 4 most commonly suggested improvements related to increasing the frequency on the existing service. Second is adding Sunday service. Third and fourth were essentially tied, but it relates to additional hours of service and service to new areas. If you see how each of those groups prioritize those, we can quickly see from the input process what was deemed to be most important. Pretty much consistent with frequency on existing routes as being the most important, with the one exception, your existing riders have a preference to have Sunday service, which they don't have today. So we use this to help guide our technical evaluation as to what the public was interested in seeing. And then these are the priorities we use for improvements to existing service, and you'll see us focus here on frequency first. Particular Route 19 is your strongest route in the system. About 40% of your ridership is on Route 19. And this proposes to improve the frequency from 30 minutes to 15 minutes, meaning a bus would come by each stop every 15 minutes after this improvement is made. And then you can see the other improvements to existing service as well. Most and all of these improvements are focused on the west side of the county. We also looked at improvement priorities for new services. These are the 5 specific new services that we included and prioritized in the plan. And you can see the areas that we're covering here as well, including the Wiregrass area. We're including St. Leo. We still have the connection between St. Leo and Dade City in the plan in the future. Shady Hills is in here, State Road 52 Express. The 5th one I will mention is the US 41 area, or the Land O'Lakes area. Route 41 is not doing particularly well in terms of ridership. So what we've set up in the plan here is another possible approach to providing service in the Land O'Lakes area if it's concluded that the Route 41 can't continue to operate as it is today. And what we're proposing here is a micro-transit solution. And what that really means, it's identifying an area where a smaller vehicle, lower cost option would provide service on demand when requested, so that it could take individuals directly to the Route 54. And it would have a service area that it would provide that service in. So it's something that we suggest potentially trying if it's concluded that the Route 41 is not going to be strong moving forward. This just is a map of the improvements in the existing network that, with the blue routes indicating the existing services today. The other colored routes are the new ones that I just talked about. We also have capital investment as a key part of the plan as well, really improvements, continuing improvements to the bus stops and the infrastructure, also the technology improvements that Kurt has been talking to you about, and moving forward with the regional fare program when that becomes available later this year. This just gives you a timeline of the improvements that we just talked about and when we are assuming them to be implemented over the next 10 years. And this is how we've put the program for implementation and finance together based on these improvements. This is the cost of that improvement program, and it shows a total cost of about $9.7 million in the coming year, 2019, and that increasing to nearly 17 million in the 10th year of the plan. The orange bars are the operating costs. The blue is the capital that we talked about investing in as well. Again, a good portion of that capital is related to the vehicles themselves, both new vehicles for new services as well as replacing your existing vehicles when their life is over.
There's a question. You want to take it?
Yeah, sure.
And maybe you're getting to it, but so is this chart, is this like keeping steady on the monies that we have, or is this us having to find new revenue sources?
It does assume some increases in local contribution, which I'll cover a little bit in the next slide, and then we can ask more questions if you have more. Basically, if you look at this chart, this is for your fixed route bus service. About 28% of that cost is covered by the local contribution, with the remainder being covered by state and federal resources, as well as your fare box recovery and other sources like advertising revenue. What that 28% comes out to be is on the average about 3.2 to 3.3 million per year, which is a couple $100,000 a year higher than you are today on the average over the next 10 years. So it does assume some increase in the local investment.
Going to the TMA meetings and listening to some of the commissioners from other counties speak, some of the other counties don't fund public transportation. Is that?
Are you talking about the counties to the south?
Yes.
They have, well, in the case of HART and PSTA, there are independent authorities that have their own funding sources directly to the authority. So they're through ad valorem or their ad valorem property taxes that are dedicated to the transit agencies. Now, the cities and the counties can have contributed additional monies on top of that, but they have that dedicated source to begin with.
Okay, but we do ours a little differently.
You just do it through your general fund through the county, which is something you could explore in the future if you wanted to change that, but that's how you're doing it today, which is not unusual for smaller transit agencies.
Just letting y'all know that in other places it's done differently, which was interesting.
And if the board ever wanted to explore different governance options, we've got some information we could share with the staff if you wanted to look at those.
One day we do work.
And with that, the next steps are we're really looking to answer any questions you have today. And we're looking for the MPO board to actually endorse it. It needs to be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners as well. And that's usually the process we've gone through in the past, to start with this MPO and then go to the commission. We've already submitted a draft to DOT to start review, but we need to formally submit an adopted TDP once that has been adopted by the commission. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Mariano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the great assets we have in the county, St. Leo College, right in the midst of the county seat and actually close to the county seat, but not far along the way for 52 from here. When I think about all the staff members that go from monthly meetings, weekly meetings, or bi-weekly meetings back and forth, even employees going back and forth, I wonder how beneficial it would be for the county if we did have that State Road 52 and maybe cost savings we'd have. Let's say we're going to have the meeting on a Tuesday. We say, okay, from staff, instead of taking your county vehicle over, we're going to have you all ride the bus back and forth, providing you don't have anything else to do right after that in the area, but or not going to a different area. But it might be something to kind of talk about as far as like, yeah, granted the revenues are going to cost us more, but maybe there's a cost savings for the county to say, you know what, it might actually be a beneficial thing. I know I'd be interested in doing that just because if I'm going back and forth, I'd rather ride than drive my own car.
Long ride, so at least somebody there would be riding the bus for you. But did you have a comment?
Yeah, I remember when listening to presentations from the gentleman from Polk County who was their transit guy. And in Polk County, they went to their major employers and worked out deals for bus traffic. So I don't remember who they are. And maybe you know, but they have agreements with those big companies for a certain fee to transport a lot of workers. So I don't know if you have any information on that.
They work closely with some of the major employers. I'm not aware of any financial contribution from those employers unless there's something happening that I'm not aware of. Now, we were involved in the TDP that I think you were talking about when he presented to you before. Tom did.
I thought that they
They have
had
strong
made some
relationship.
agreements with companies that they would make the buses, the routes available that worked for those companies, and kind of like what McDill has with Brandon.
Now I think they're funding bus passes for their employees.
Yeah,
Okay,
they've got some
not
kind of
directly-
package that it's organized. It's not, I mean, it's intentional.
Our company does the same for our staff in Tampa, where if they choose to use transit, then we reimburse them for the cost of those passes.
Additional questions? I know you are looking for MPO board endorsements, so does that come back to, or is it just a nod and a consensus that we endorse
Yeah,
it?
just a blessing. Their formal requirement is the BOCC, and I believe they're scheduled for next week to get that approval.
Didn't Kelly Miller mention something that the CAC was recommending to us about the bus? What was it that the CAC had on their update? She had to leave.
Well, I don't know if she mentioned at this meeting, but one of the things that maybe the CAC brought up was working with the transit agency to see if maybe like county employees could have bus passes or these kinds of things where you could promote using public transit
what you were saying with the
more
businesses.
evenly. So that's kind of something the CAC has been talking about,
that's a
bringing
great
forward
idea.
as a recommendation at some point. I think we were going to meet with Peace PT first and maybe sketch out a little plan before we came to
sounds like-
something formal.
That's a good thing. Additional comments, questions? So it sounds like everybody's got it's a good thing and moving forward, and keep us posted. So lots of good things happening. Thank you. All right, Mr. John, you have some other meetings that were held, and I know we have to talk about an
just
upcoming meeting.
Just a few quick wrap-ups if we could. So Commissioner Wells and Councilmember Altman, on behalf of Councilmember Starkey, came to the TMA meeting, and essentially what that's about is restructuring the TMA as it is. So it was more of a discussion. We didn't come to any real resolution because the reality is the TMA doesn't really endorse, or it doesn't really fund anything, and they don't really develop anything. So they're a regional group to try to come up with regional priorities. So some ideas were thrown around, but I think it's going to be at least deferred till the next meeting. So when Commissioner Starkey Mariano can be there, that's a great thing because they want to get into how they want to restructure. What they're proposing is just rotating it and really having no voting or weight involved in any of it.
Go back to the prior item, if you could, the MPO needs to endorse this TDP.
Oh, so I asked that, so yes.
It doesn't say action.
Yeah, that's why I asked, do we need an action item? And I think there was consensus that we were in approval, but did you want an official?
Move to endorse.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I did ask you, but, all righty, so.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
So Commissioner Starkey, I didn't get to make the meeting. I was out for a family wedding, but so if you want to have your own input as far as what you thought?
No, Wells went in my place because I
Oh, okay,
didn't
you didn't go.
either, so,
Okay.
and he got Mayor Altman, or not Mayor, Councilman Altman
Mhm.
to go as well, so I'm sorry you couldn't be here. I did get some interesting texts from him. But, yeah, so we'll have to get his report at the
Okay.
board meeting Monday because I'm anxious to hear.
So do you want to talk about the others? I know we had a couple others.
Yeah, I was just briefly going to bring up the fact that there was the MPO regional coordination where they're discussing possibly coordinating all of our MPOs. So what they did in the collaborative labs, Commissioner Starkey was there, maybe you want to share, but essentially they're going to have a follow-up meeting in October to discuss that and then and possibly a presentation of the recommendations to this board in January is what we're trying to work on with Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Yeah, I was there too. We were there. We wish we'd have had more Pasco people as
Camille was
always,
there.
but that's just, the location is not a good
And there
thing.
were maybe five Pinellas commissioners there.
That's
I
a
don't
lot.
think there were any Hillsborough commissioners. One staffer
right.
from Commissioner Kemp.
Right.
And I believe the next one's going to be in Hillsborough.
October 29th. So
October
I know that, I
29th.
thought the notice did go out. I didn't see the location, but that would be good. Hopefully that's more incentive to get folks from our area there because that's a little disappointing.
Don't we have a T-Barter meeting coming up here in Pasco?
Well, there's one on Friday, this
This
coming Friday.
That's here in this room?
I believe it's in Pasco,
We
yeah.
have T-Barter here in this room.
All right.
So before we go to public comment, I know there was a conversation about October. Right now, you said there isn't really any items on the agenda right now, so I needed to bring that up and see. I know we talked about a workshop that we never were able to have, but as far as an official meeting, we don't really have items per se, so I just needed to find out, get some direction input from this board, what they wanted to do. if we should go ahead and cancel it or just
We
wait till.
don't have to meet if we don't have.
Yeah, we don't have to meet, but I don't, that's what I was told from staff, that there was nothing right now.
Just wanted to share, though, that we did have a couple of items. We're going to have performance measures that you have to approve in November. What we'll do is send you just a little page flyer on what that is, so you're familiar with it, as part of our LRTP, and also the Wesley Chapel. So if that could be delayed till November, the presentation that you're going to get, those are only the most pending
If
things
we don't
at
have
this
to
time.
meet, I mean, I don't know about you, but if we don't need
I
to
got enough
meet.
meetings.
Yeah, I mean, no point in meeting. And was December, there was a time issue or something, right? Or is that?
Yeah, so the problem with December is you're having your meeting in Dade City at 10 a.m., and then Kelly Miller had invited you for a breakfast at 9 a.m. in Newport Richey
Oh.
on the
That's
same
what-
day.
breakfast,
So
but
the question was, do you want us to send a survey to you in terms of if you can change your schedule? Did some of you want to attend that and not attend the board meeting? It was really up to you to decide how you want to
Yeah, 'cause
handle
we
it.
need to.
After you left last month.
Right, this came up,
yeah,
that's what I heard.
Commissioner Moore just whispered in my ear that he cannot change his schedule for that meeting in December, but that was just input I made last.
So we would, if we did have the meeting, we just need to make sure we have a quorum unless we flip-flop it.
Yeah, unless all of you were planning to go to that breakfast. I don't know how many of you typically go, but if a couple of you wanted to go and didn't make the board meeting, I mean,
Right, we just
we
need to
do
make sure
have
we have the
some
numbers.
decision points. We always want all of you there, but we understand that.
That's the Christmas breakfast with Kona?
That's Kona's.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought we had this worked out last year.
Well, last year the meeting was here and we started it an
So-
hour late.
Can we just switch the meeting to here?
That's what I was saying, but
The reason we had preliminarily had December in Dade City was because we were going to provide the Wesley Chapel discussion, and it was requested that the Wesley Chapel connection study. So it was discussed that it would be held in Dade City just because the majority of East Side are the ones impacted by the connection of.
Folks over there, I think so.
That's been a heated item too, correct?
I'm sorry?
That's a pretty heated item.
I think it is a pretty controversial
why,
item,
so-
so they wanted it in the east side. But what we're saying is if we only come to you in November with that preliminary introduction to it, we're not convinced that we're going to be coming back in December for a resolution. It may even go into January, February. Is what we're concerned about.
So can we just leave everything, I mean, right now, we won't have a meeting in October. In November, you can update us, and it sounds like if that is going to move, then if we do need to just, I don't know
We
how
can do
big a
that,
deal is
yeah.
publicly to switch locations like that, as long as we're having the meeting. I don't know what kind of notice you need out there, but it sounds like that's something we could,
All right, so I'll make a motion, we take the December meeting from Dade City to Newport Richey.
but still have it.
Let's still have it.
second.
Second.
Right, because you're saying right, because we're, okay.
No.
But he's saying what John's saying is it's likely that that's not going to, right? That's the only reason why. Otherwise, we're going to hear it. Right? We're going to, that's, as long as you feel confident it would not happen until January. Otherwise, the three of us are going to hear.
Yeah, we'll make it.
Or
not
make,
happen.
yeah, okay. All right, so there was a motion. I did not hear a second.
No, I second.
You seconded, motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So a December meeting will be in the Newport Richey location. Right? Cool. All right.
How did Commissioner Oakley vote?
Won't be delayed, so.
All right, and you'll figure out if this is available. Okay, this is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience like to address the MPO board at this time? Seeing none? Anything from us over here? We're going to go ahead and adjourn at 12:05. Thank you all.